So, you want to build an awesome mythic character, or you want to run a mythic campaign. Well, how do you go about doing that? Well, why don't you watch me and a bunch of other content creators try to figure that out? Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Pathfinder 2E video. And today I'm happy to announce that I am taking part in a sort of winter extravaganza with a bunch of Pathfinder 2E creators. So I'll be working together with Swingripper, Mathfinder, and Psi Prime Productions to put on a showcase of Mythic Rules as well as Ancestry Paragon Rules. The finale of this will be on Sunday, December 22nd at 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time over on Swingripper's channel, where we will be live streaming, and there will be a VOD later, a set of mythic encounters, and we'll see whether or not Swingripper manages to kill us all. The next video in this series leading up to the event will be over on Mathfinder's channel on December 19th, so consider checking that out too. And then on the 20th on Swingripper's channel, there will be a homebrew monster video showcasing the baddies that he's going to attempt to kill us with. It'll be fine, probably. So for this video, I am going to be playing the holiday-themed role of Ebb Scrouge. I'm going to be an old man, an ancient elf old man, kind of, in terms of vibes here. And I am going to be playing an Animist. And I want to talk about why I chose Animist specifically before I start getting into any build details. Let's be clear here. Swingripper is going to try to kill us. Swingripper is a great player, fantastic DM, lots of great optimization advice. Check out his channel if you haven't seen it already. But he is absolutely going to push the envelope here, which is fair because we are playing a super high power game. We are using Mythic Rules, we are using Ancestry Paragon. We've basically been told, yeah, uncommon, rare options, whatever, go for it. So this is like a no holds barred set of encounters, and we were told, like, expect it to be tough. And I chose the Animist because the Animist has absolutely crazy out-of-combat healing, probably the best out-of-combat healing in the game. So we're going to go into every encounter fully healed. I have strong blasting options with one of my focus spells, and in terms of the number of spells available to me on any given day, it's a massive number. I'm also going to have a ton of lores if those become relevant. Plus, we all chose holiday-themed characters, and Ebb Scrouge going and talking to a bunch of spirits to get his spells from them is very, very funny, and just like chef's kiss in terms of flavor. And the build that I'm going to put together today has some very strong action economy cheats. Like we have some really good like action economy compressions where we can take one action that really gives us two separate actions. And I am going to try to take advantage of that to the fullest. I will also be taking the Razmiran Priest dedication, as I think that is something that deserves testing, and on a stage this big and with the stakes this high in this mythic campaign, I think this is a fantastic chance to show that off. And I'm going to go ahead and show off the big picture of what I want my character to do first, and then we'll get into some of the minutia, because I think it's most interesting if you understand, like, I think this video comes across the best if you know where I'm coming from and what my ultimate goal is first. And to understand where I'm coming from, I think we need to start by talking about the apparition focus spells, and I'm going to go ahead and just put all three of these up here for the sake of ease. The Animist has awesome focus spells. So for example, Earth's Bile at level 10 that we are playing at, again, very strong for a one-shot, is going to deal, in theory, 3d4 fire damage, 3d4 bludgeoning damage, 3 persistent fire damage to anything in a 10-foot burst for a single action, and it can be sustained to do it again and again and again and again and again. Garden of Healing offers an impressive 5d4 hit points healed within a 10-foot emanation of me. Again, sustainable. You can just keep going. And Trickster's Mirrors works very similarly to the Blur spell from D&D, where each time you sustain it, you get another mirror, and when someone goes to hit you, they might accidentally hit a mirror instead of you. and you can have up to 3 mirrors. So in theory, something could have a 25% chance to hit you before we even start getting into things like armor class, which is dope. So I'm going to generate a build that attempts to sustain multiple of these spells at the same time, or one action. To do this, we need to be a liturgist, which gives us the Circle of Spirits feat. Or you could otherwise just take Circle of Spirits, but for reasons that are going to become clear in just a second, it is going to be much better if you are a liturgist to try to make this work. Because at level 9, the liturgist gets the Dancing Invocation. When you leap, step, or tumble through, you also sustain an apparition spell or vessel spell. That is an animist focus spell. And we are going to combine this with Elf Step. You step 5 feet twice. So, with Elf Step specifically, for one action, we get to step, step, sustain, sustain. That is 4 actions for 1 action in sort of a really cool way that all of these things line up. So what this means is with that 1 action, I can be dealing damage offensively with Earth's Bile while using something like Trickster's Mirrors to have a strong defensive option for myself. And I think this is going to be pretty powerful. So in terms of turn cycles here, what this might end up looking like is on my first turn, I do a 2-action spell of some kind and a 1-action focus spell, and that's my turn. On the second turn, I will use Circle of Spirits to switch into a different primary apparition, meaning that I get access to the focus spell of that apparition. I will then use 1 action to sustain, and I could do that by stepping, leaping, whatever. And then I will cast another focus spell. So now I have 2 focus spells going. And normally doing something like this, sustaining 2 spells at the same time, doesn't really work within Pathfinder 2E, unless you are a witch or have the witch dedication to have the cackle spell. It tends to be pretty tough to do this. And then on the third turn and beyond, I get Elf Step to step, step, sustain, sustain, while still doing a 2-action spell of some kind. And this is before we get into any other action economy cheats, and you bet that I'm going to be going for as many of them as I can. So this is the overall build idea. Be a monster at sustaining spells, be a monster in terms of free actions or actions that give us more than one thing at the same time. All right, now let's actually kind of look at the character sheet, so to speak, and start talking about like background stats, all that sort of stuff. If you take a look up here on the bar, this is where I'm going to end up as of level 10. So I'm a wisdom-focused class. I have decent con, decent dex, decent int. The int is particularly important to this character as we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different lores. And some of these are very much tied to what I am expecting, such as holiday lore that you might not take on a normal character. But this is Ebenezer Scrooge, and good old Ebb Scrouge. Well, he knows things about holidays, especially Christmas, and he knows things about being haunted. And that's kind of the vibe that I am going with for this character. Since this is a no-holds-barred one-shot here, I will be selecting the rare Time Traveler background, which actually works with my character. You know, Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, Future, all that stuff. Time Traveler actually makes sense here. And the Bend Time action is pretty interesting. So once a day, at the beginning of your turn, you can become quickened. You can use this extra action to stride. So while I might get a lot of free steps from other places, this is a way to get a burst of movement if I am out of range to use one of my spells or there is some other emergency. We are actually going to be selecting Halfling here as my ancestry, and then doing Ayuvaran, that is kind of the elf heritage. I want to gain access to Elf Step. That's the most important thing to make this entire build work. But Halfling having a strength flaw is probably better than the elves having a con flaw, and I very much do need all of the stats. That's how I ended up here. The original draft of this was definitely an elf, though. So we're going to get 2 things from being a halfling. that a little bigger. So we are going to get Halfling Luck to give us a reroll on a failed check or saving throw. And we are going to get Step Lively. So this allows you to just kind of step, hopefully, out of the range of a creature. Now, a quick note here, as there is a buried trait that matters that's very, very easy to miss. So I'm just going to read this verbatim. Vessel spells are a type of focus spell. Because vessel spells are a manifestation of a specific apparition, an animist can't cast or sustain a specific vessel spell in the same round they have already cast or sustained it. So a round in Pathfinder is not just your turn, it is the entire turn cycle for all of the people in initiative. So it is, I think, a little confusing because they use turn here and round above, but I believe the intention is that you cannot sustain this twice. I don't think you can cast this and then sustain it. So Step Lively can give you a step outside of your turn, but you cannot use that to sustain a vessel spell that you have already cast or sustained that turn. You may be able to come up with something cheeky to do with this, as the dancing invocation that you get at 9th level does allow you to sustain an apparition spell on a step. So if you use one of your animist apparition spell slots to cast a sustained spell, and that spell will do something relevant, keyword relevant, upon being sustained, you can maybe find an instance where that becomes relevant. I'm not sure that that is going to be relevant on this specific character at this specific level, but you know, it's out there. And from our elf side of the family, we're going to get a couple of things. We're going to get a little bit of movement speed from being a nimble elf. We are going to get slightly better versus emotion effects because of Forlorn. And I think in a small 3-person party, being a little bit better versus emotion effects is a pretty big boon. And then we will be picking up Elven Instincts as well for a bonus to initiative rolls. But I'm going to talk about that more just a little bit later due to an interaction with something else that I'm going to be doing here. All right, let's see what we're getting from the Animist itself now. And I'm actually going to give up my level 2 class feat to pick up the Priest of the Living God dedication, aka the Razmiran Priest dedication. And this is going to allow me to give out a relatively sizable chunk of temporary HP to all of my party members. That is with the Call Upon the Living God's Benevolence action. So I'm going to be able to give myself and my party members temporary HP equal to twice my level. And at level 10, that is 20 temporary HP. There is a short cooldown on this. I believe it is once a minute. Yeah, once per minute. So if I have 3 minutes, bam, 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 okay, now everyone is pre-buffed and ready to go for battle. And in a probably set of mythic difficulty encounters, I think this extra wiggle room is going to be quite good. I do have another video kind of talking about this dedication in particular, as well as the exemplar dedication. So if you want to go into balance concerns about this, check out that video. At level 4, I went with Embodiment of the Balance, which allows you to use heal and harm for your apparition spell slots. And in a small party, I do not want to run out of heals. I want to be able to burst heal when I need to, because my character with the Garden of Healing focus spell should just have out of combat healing trivialized. So I want to make sure that if someone is going down, I can get them back up or keep them from going down, preferably. At level 6, I'm going to be picking up Medium's Awareness, which gives me a +2 status bonus to perception checks made to seek and when using perception for your initiative roll. If I were to continue on to higher levels, this would scale up again at 12th level and then again at 20th level. Now, for those of you who have played wisdom-based characters before, getting to add your wisdom modifier to your initiative roll feels really, really good. I am already an expert in perception. I will get a +2 initiative bonus from this feat, and then a +2 initiative bonus of a different type from my Elven Ancestry feats. So I am going to end up adding, I believe, 24 to my my initiative rolls for perception. It might be 25. I don't remember whether or not this number already counts an item bonus, but it's a lot. At 8th level, I went back and forth on this a lot. I think Channeler's Stance is pretty solid. It can make my burst heals even better, or make my focus spell that I am sustaining deal more damage. I think this is perfectly good. I went back and forth between this and Apparition Sense in this slot. And I know it might seem weird to use an 8th level slot to pick up 1st level feats. But generally speaking, I think these are good. And remember, I did give up 1 feat earlier to pick up the Razmir Priest dedication, so like there is a cost associated with that. And for my final class feature, I will be picking up the Apparition's Quickening. Now, at 10th level, an Animist gets to be attuned to 3 apparitions, so I do meet the requirements for this. And the gist of this is that you can dismiss one of those apparitions to reduce the casting time of one of your spells by 1. So this has a frequency of once per round. So in theory, in this last combat, assuming it's very clear who the big bad of this, holiday special is, I could 2 turns in a row cheat action economy using Apparition's Quickening. But the kind of nice thing here is that because I have given myself heal and harm as like signature spells for my apparition spell slots, even if I dismiss a bunch of my apparitions, I'm still going to be good to go in terms of having usable features at every level. So that should more or less cover the class itself. But let's take one quick look at what apparitions I intend to attune to. Now, I could switch these out the day of, but is my intention to be playing with Steward of Stone and Fire, Custodian of Groves and Gardens, as well as Reveler Lost in Glee. Reveler in Lost Glee. I'm not going to go over everything that each one of these gives, but super quick recap. This is blasting oriented, this is defensive and healing oriented, and the Reveler in Lost Glee kind of has like occult vibes to it. I will link to my character in the video description if you are interested in going through every single spell that I have. Because the Animist has prepared spell slots as well as these Animist Apparition spell slots, like there's just a lot here, and I don't think it's the most interesting to walk through. I'll highlight a couple of things real quick. Knowing that we are playing some sort of holiday special where it is going to be cold, maybe bitterly cold in some kind, I am going to be taking 1 spell, Environmental Endurance, that I might not be taking on a normal character to protect myself from the severe cold. Otherwise, mostly the other things that I am preparing here are probably going to be familiar to you. These are, very, very basic, solid, strong options, except Diadem of Divine Radiance, which I will go over explicitly in the next section. All right, now let's talk about mythic heroes, mythic characters. So in case you're not familiar with the general Mythic rules, the gist of it is that instead of hero points, you get mythic points. You start with 3 mythic points, and you can earn some mythic points back when you do something that is particularly impressive or that kind of fits in with your character's mythic destiny. So in terms of power level, think of these kind of like giving your table a free archetype, except it kind of impacts the way that hero points are played. And this is very much cranking the power level up to 11. These things are mechanically very strong. We are going to be taking the Sage's Calling Mythic Destiny, which is going to make us better at recalling knowledge. So we can spend a mythic point to attempt a recall knowledge check at mythic proficiency, and the first time we crit on a recall knowledge check against an enemy creature, you regain a mythic point. Mythic points are really good, so having ways to regain them, huge thumbs up. And given the number of lores I have, it is pretty likely that I can actually regain a mythic point in doing so. At level 4, this is the thing that might make my character broken. Godspeed. Mythic power grants you speed to rival beasts and demigods. Spend a mythic point. For the next minute, you get a plus 10-foot status bonus to all of your speeds and are quickened. You can use the extra action each round to stride, step, or leap. So beyond just elf step, I can just also get a way to free action step every turn at the cost of a mythic point. But Mr. ThrabenU, why would you build your character around elf step if Godspeed exists? Well, great question, Timmy. You only have so many mythic points, and there are going to be a lot of really good ways to use them. So even though this might be the best way to go and repeatedly sustain a focus spell, especially if I'm only trying to sustain one in a fight for some reason, I don't want to assume that I am always just going to have Godspeed on. So, for example, at level 6, I'm going to pick up Divert Destiny. So, if something would kill me outright or reduce me to 0 hit points, I say, nah fam, it's not over yet, and I expend a mythic point to survive this triggering attack or effect, lose the wounded or dying conditions entirely, don't increase your doom condition, are conscious and standing with a number of hit points equal to 10 plus your level, in this case, 20 total hit points. So when you can use a mythic point to do that, that's pretty massive. So I don't want to assume that I'm always going to be able to use a mythic point to Godspeed. And while you can regain some mythic points, I don't want to assume that I will just start every encounter with 3 of them and just blow through them quickly, like I might be able to do with focus points. And since I said regaining mythic points is so important, I will be taking Summon Mythic Power at level 8 to be able to regain a mythic point at will. Again, once a day activation, but this is very strong. And one of the reasons I want to be careful with burning through focus points is because mythic casting exists. So you can spend a mythic point. If the next action you use is to cast a spell, use Mythic Proficiency to determine your spell attack rolls and save DC for that spell. So, this can be really interesting. There are some effects that are very, very powerful, and sometimes an enemy succeeds at that because they are naturally a higher level. When you use Mythic Casting to really bump up the DC of something, some spells are going to be very scary. Let's take a simple example here. Let's just use a 2nd level spell slot. Let's just say that I cast Laughing Fit. So on my turn, I use one of my actions to spend a mythic point so that I can cast Laughing Fit for 2 actions at Mythic Proficiency. I'm targeting Will, which is lower for many creatures, and it is now going to be potentially slowed 1 and can't use reactions, and I can just keep sustaining that, which my character is built to do. And this is not counting any like Mythic Proficiency giant damage spell that you do, especially if you can set it up further than that. And you know, if the monster happens to critically fail, you know, they're just not doing stuff ever. Seems good. There's one other way I'm going to have to spend mythic points. I've taken one mythic spell. So a spell that has the mythic tag itself requires a mythic point to cast in addition to your normal spell slot. And this is just kind of a gross spell. So this is 120 feet range, spell attack at mythic proficiency. On a hit, 4d8 spirit damage, 1d4 persistent spirit damage, dazzled for 1 round, dazzled for 3 round on a critical hit. And this can also go and bypass something like magical darkness as well. And if this doesn't sound exciting to you, when you cast this spell and when you sustain it during the duration, you can draw a disc of spiraling light from the diadem and throw it. So every time I sustain this at mythic proficiency, I can make this attack. So for maybe 1 action or a free action on my build, that is just free action, 48, maybe some persistent spirit damage, and a chance at dazzling a creature. And I can just kind of do this again and again and again and again and again. And this spell seems very, very strong, worthy of the rare tags and the mythic tag for sure. Next up, general feats, skill feats. And honestly, I wish I had something exciting to say here, but I don't. This character is kind of the most vanilla possible in terms of skill trainings. If you take a look here, I'm trained in darn near everything, and I have accomplished this by using a lot of my skill feat slots to just take the skill training skill. I want to make sure that our 3-person party has at least trained proficiencies in most things. Ebenezer Scrooge, obviously, he's not much of a talker. So far as diplomacy goes, we're gonna ignore that. Performance, not so much. Society, no, I don't have friends. Thievery, I mean, if I had one more skill training, like we'd be there, but you gotta kind of cut corners somewhere. As far as general feats go, I am going toughness as well as fleet. Again, very, very basic. I have kip up so that if I have to stand up, I can do so as a free action. Again, I think those really matter on this character, and I don't want to just get whomped by enemies that have reactions and have knocked me prone via some athletics maneuver or a rider on something. Now, as an animist, I can talk to the spirits, and the consult with spirits skill will be a reasonable way for me to get a little bit of extra information from the GM on a recall knowledge check if we're a little unsure about what it is exactly that we need to do. And why don't we go ahead and round this out by talking about the items that I am going to be using here. The standout item is not actually a high level item, it's actually a consumable. The Emerald Grasshopper. So, requirement trained in athletics, so I did have to take that training. So, when you activate this talisman, which has to be affixed to something, you can leap, traveling up to 40 feet horizontally and 10 feet vertically. So, this doesn't show it properly here, but this is supposed to be a free action. And as such, I have yet another way to go and make sure that I can sustain all of these various spells that I'm going to be doing, because I not only have these focus spells, but I also have things like the diadem that I might need to be sustaining over the course of my adventuring day. Having a character with a strength flaw can be a little rough. We are very much bordering on the total bulk that I could carrying these various items. So I do have a backpack, which I have a repair kit stored in so that I can attach another grasshopper should I need to do that. I've got 3 that I can use throughout the day. Staff of Healing is a solid option. With both Staff of Healing and my Channeler's stance, the heal spells that I can do will be pretty bulky. The heal spell is already strong, but this will just make it stronger. And then we just have a handful of things to make sure that I make it through the adventuring day okay. I want the ability to run up an ice wall or something like that if I encounter it, hence the boots of free running. Outside of combat, I'm going to have the opportunity to recall knowledge, essentially with inspiration, with advantage in D&D terms. Fortune effects are very good, and more generally, this item is going to give me a +1 to recall knowledge with lore skills, so that's essentially an item that is giving me a +9 bonus across the board. Love it. For a winter-themed thing, I think I would be a fool to not do something for cold resistance, so I'm going to take resistance 5 to cold. I have a couple of healing potions that I hope to never use, but I'm going to be the party's primary healer, and if I go down, I want there to be something on my body that someone could grab. The obsidian goggles are just going to give me a slight bonus to perception checks. Again, I'm going to end up with a +5 to, any sort of sight-based perception roll. I'll have a scroll of heal. Again, if we stay alive, we're probably good as mythic power characters, but I just want to make sure that I am totally good in that regard. So in terms of my hands, I believe that I'm going to have a scroll of heal in one hand and a staff of healing out in another hand. And then I will be wearing a shining symbol for a bonus to my religion checks, as well as kind of a low quality dim light around me at all time. Defensively speaking, nothing exciting here. +1 resilient leather armor. I don't really need a weapon for any reason, so I think that's all I really have in terms of gear. Alright, so conclusion time. Let's just kind of think about this character. I think this is going to be a powerful character. Like, we have built with the Mythic Rules that are giving us a bunch of extra feats. We have built this with Ancestry Paragon as well, so that I gain access to a bunch of the elf and halfling stuff that I normally would not have access to. Beyond just that, I think I have chosen some powerful options and built a really synergistic character. In terms of what I'm bringing to the table, I bring a lot of skill trainings to the table. I have a ton of lores, most of which I am an expert in. I think I'm going to be good in a prolonged adventuring day if we do a bunch of smaller fights. My focus spells are really strong, and assuming I get the chance to refocus between combats, what I have going on here means that I could realistically go through a lot of even kind of tough combats just sustaining both Earth's Bile and Trickster's Mirror or Garden of Healing at the same time while firing off some cantrips or lower level spell slots. I think I'm going to have some really good higher level options, just kind of quickly flipping through the Animist Apparition spells. Like, I am going to have Fireball for blasting. I'm going to have Wall of Stone for control. And I have some pretty good prepared spells that offer status effects or other ways to kind of mess with the enemy action economy here. And I think if I have, heals to keep my other party members up, I think I am bringing a lot to the table. And I am looking forward to seeing the build videos of my fellow winter-themed adventurers. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that I will see you on Sunday, December 22nd at 6:15 p.m. Eastern on Swingripper's channel for the actual fights and the winter-themed one-shot. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya!